You forgot who built this house.
I built my company from nothing 25 years ago. Started in my garage with cut-up hands and a Torquay wrench. Grew it from greasy sketches to national sales with 4 factories and 300 workers. My wife, my brother-in-law Rick, and my cousin Joel all had seats on the board because running it as a family felt smart back then. Spoiler, it wasn't. Last month they called a surprise board meeting. Between my second and third cup of stale coffee, they voted me out. No yelling, no last-minute talks, just the board's lawyer reading in a flat voice while the rest looked anywhere but at me. My wife, board member spouse, sat still, hands folded, like she was waiting for a spa appointment, not ending my life's work. They called it strategic misalignment. Said the company needed a younger, more digital CEO. Never mind I took it from a garage floor to national reach. Never mind they built nothing. Rick leaned back in that smug way he has, in a chair he only had because of me. Joel even winked when the vote came out unanimous. I nodded, thanked them for their honesty, and shook hands on the way out. Because that's what you do when wolves wear country club polos. Security walked me to the elevator. I even smiled at the clipboard guy. A wide smile, the kind that says something they can't read. But here's what they didn't know. I'd been ready for this for 3 years. While they did LinkedIn interviews and argued about golf course landscaping, I read tax code like thrillers. I set up a web of holding companies, 1 in Delaware, because Delaware, 2 in Wyoming, 1 in Panama, just to confuse anyone tracking ownership. Every time we raised funds or issued new shares, I let my stake shrink on paper. Let the family's shares grow. Rick got loud, Joel gave quotes, my wife switched from saying he to we when telling the origin story. I let it happen. I pushed it along. They never noticed I was moving voting rights to Cascade Equities, owned by an LLC called Kai Fall Ventures, hidden under a trustee who owed me more than cash. Buried in it all was a clause letting me take back control if the founder was forced out. They signed everything, every quarter. Joel once okayed a 42-page restructuring on his phone during a golf course call. Rick was too busy picking fights on LinkedIn. My wife had already begun talking like we were apart. We have different visions. He's better with early-stage stuff. I let them dream. I let them climb while I built the trapdoor. By the time they voted me out, public records said I had less than 10%. No veto, no power, no board seat. What they didn't know? I still held 48.6% of the company. Not in my name. Not in any way that would ping their systems, but in truth, I was still the king. Just wearing a mask. That night, I went to my garage. Same pegboard with screwdrivers shoved in at odd angles. Same cracked linoleum curling like dead leaves. My first blueprint, sketched on a diner napkin in a caffeine rush, still hung in a cheap Walmart frame. I opened the old filing cabinet, not the obvious one, the other one with the hidden false bottom my wife never knew about. Inside was a flash drive and a yellowed envelope marked "in case of treason" in my handwriting. I opened it slow, like cutting the right wire on a bomb. Inside was a password. Long, ugly, impossible to memorize. Yet I still knew it. I pulled out an old laptop I'd built to stay offline, air-gapped, never touched by the company network. It wheezed to life, loading a bare desktop with 1 folder. Failsafe protocol. Inside, 12 subfolders, each with dates, code names, and step-by-step instructions. I'd been building a shadow playbook for years. I clicked Daedalus legal structures, filings from Delaware, Wyoming, Cyprus, full maps of voting shares, clauses I'd slipped into contracts they signed without reading. Then the videos. 3 recordings from board meetings over the last 18 months. Not for blackmail, but to remind myself I wasn't paranoid. Rick grinning about staff pay cuts. Joel's throat clear before lying about quarterly numbers. I wasn't mourning. I was loading the plan. Then I made 1 call. Malcolm Glass. Just saying his name feels like a warning. Founder of Crooked River Capital, a hedge fund with the charm of a Shark Tank. 7 years ago, he tried to buy us, sent a crew with shiny words about synergy and agile scale. I told him to pound sand without even taking dinner, but I knew he'd still answer. 1 encrypted email from a burner account I hadn't touched in a decade. Interested in finishing what you started? He replied in 7 minutes. Call me. We talked after midnight. I was barefoot in my garage, spreadsheet open, burner phone to my ear. The bourbon was gone, my voice steady. I told him the exact percent Cascade Equities held, said I was ready to sign, but it had to happen overnight. Full transfer, no press, NDAs with teeth. He laughed like an old wolf catching the smell of blood. You're serious? After all these years, you're giving me the keys? You still want it? I want it. But this will cost you everything. Your name, your legacy. You know that. I glanced at the family photo above my breaker box. Me in the middle, Joel with his fake laugh, Rick holding a baby like a coffee mug, my wife looking at me like I was just a step to the next thing. They buried that legacy already. He went quiet just long enough to remind me why I respected him, even while hating him. I'll need proof of control rights, clean transfer docs, trigger clause language. You'll have it in 3 hours, all time-stamped. The trust is set. The board will wake up owning nothing but stationery. The midnight law office felt like walking into a vault. 23rd floor, lone receptionist with tired eyes and a badge that read Nathan. Down the hall, one lit office. Malcolm's guy had rented it for 6 hours, short-term, off the books, no digital trace. Inside sat 3 men, a lawyer, a notary, and one from Crooked River who called himself Tobias and didn't shake hands. Everything was ready. All 48.6% of my shares were split, bundled, and moved to DRK NXT Holdings, Malcolm's quiet jab at our old name, Next Horizon. I initialed the last page. The notary stamped it with a dull thud, like a coffin lid closing. I slid over the USB with override codes and shareholder control checks. Any rollback attempt without your key will trigger legal action, I told Tobias. Also, a copy of the family's private chat logs, including some colorful lines about minorities and shady tax moves, is in escrow. Tobias raised an eyebrow. You really covered everything. Wouldn't be here otherwise. By 3:20 a.m., I was home. At 4:45, Malcolm texted one word, confirmed. At 5:06, the server pushed the new board registry live. By sunrise, no one with my last name owned the company. 9:01 a.m. the next day, their world started falling apart. System access down, the CFO texted, thinking it was routine. 9:03, legal went to voicemail. IT guy who posted Monday cat gifs hadn't logged in. 9:05, Rick, fresh CEO, was ranting about Q3 when his dashboard kicked him mid-sentence. He clicked again. Permission denied. Please contact your administrator. He wasn't used to that. He thought he was the administrator. 9:07. Corporate lawyer Michelle skipped the front end and hit the shareholder registry. She froze. Her eyes scanned the screen like it was a foreign language. Cascade Equities, 0% Rick Meyer, 0% Joel Fine, 0% Crooked River Capital via DRK NXT Holdings, 48.6% controlling interest, she whispered. Where did the shares go? 9:09, Slack channels blue. Up. Anyone else can't access inventory? Why does the admin portal say I'm a guest? Did we just get bought? 9:12. Joel called me 4 times. Left a shaky message. Hey, I think something's weird. Call me back. I didn't. 9:15. Malcolm's team dropped an internal press release. Short and lethal. Crooked River Capital had taken operational control, effective immediately. The emergency board meeting was pure poetry. 6 frantic people around a polished table covered in printouts, all showing red lockout screens. No coffee, no muffins, just panic and expensive clothes. 10:04. The main monitor lit up. Malcolm Glass appeared. New York skyline behind him. Black button down, no tie. Voice smooth as poison. Gentlemen, I'm pleased to finally be attending a board meeting of Next Horizon. I look forward to running this company better than you ever did. Rick tried to speak. Malcolm raised a finger like a priest giving last rites. You don't speak now. You listen. Joel slammed his fist. You can't just walk in and... I didn't walk in, Joel. You opened the door years ago. I just waited until you were stupid enough to push out the only man who knew where the foundation was laid. Michelle cleared her throat. These documents, this transfer, it can't possibly hold. There was no transparency. Malcolm tilted his head. Transparency? Like how you transparently buried the founder in a quarterly session. You signed off on restructuring 2 years ago. It's airtight. I should know. I paid your firm to audit it. Rick finally exploded. You think you can steal our company? We'll sue you into the ground. Malcolm didn't blink. And I'll countersue you into bankruptcy. That's the difference between me and your country club coup. I planned this. Their monitors updated. New board composition. Malcolm as chairman, 3 Crooked River executives as voting members. Rick's name gone. Joel pending review. My wife reduced to non-voting advisory. The silence was thick enough to strangle. This was a trap, Michelle muttered. No, Malcolm corrected, calm and precise. This was a will reading. And you just found out Daddy left it all to someone else. He ended the call. Screen went black. Michelle closed her laptop slowly. This isn't recoverable. They laid landmines 2 years ago. We just danced over them. Joel was first to go. Mutual separation, after Malcolm showed him discretionary spending irregularities. Didn't even pack his office, just left with a gym bag. Rick lasted 2 weeks before a 10-minute performance review deactivated his badge mid-lunch. The dominoes fell fast. Logo changed to NXT Glass Holdings. Chicago office shut after Q1. Atlanta didn't make Q2. Same buildings they'd bragged about scaling into new markets became liabilities with overdue rent. My wife filed for separation 3 weeks later. Not for love, for distance. She thought getting away from the blast radius might save her career. It didn't. Joel's second mortgage foreclosed. Rick's startup dissolved after angel investors pulled out. Cousin Stacy rebranded as a wellness consultant on LinkedIn, one of those bios screaming desperation wrapped in affirmations. Meanwhile, I bought a ridiculous espresso machine and named it Joel. It hissed like a dragon and steamed milk like a locomotive. Spent my days fishing, reading, rewiring my garage into a personal lab. Sometimes people in the industry reached out, cautious just checking in messages or heard you step down, any plans? I thanked them, said I was resting, recalibrating. But no one mentioned what really happened. Not out loud because they didn't have to. They knew, everyone knew. You could see it in the nervous side eyes at industry events, in the abrupt silence when my name came up, like I was the ghost of consequence, a man who'd been wronged and didn't scream, just erased. The beauty of it all was my silence was the message. I didn't leak anything, didn't trash anyone in the press, no op-eds, no vengeance speeches, just vacuum. And it ate them alive. Because when you betray a builder and he burns the blueprint before walking away, you're not left with nothing. You're left with what you built. And if it turns out you never built a damn thing, then all you really have is what you can sell. My wife showed up at the house just after 9 p.m. one night, 3 weeks after filing separation papers, headlights sweeping across the driveway like searchlights. She hesitated before getting out, still wore the same cream blazer from that board meeting, wrinkled now, hair pulled back but strands falling loose like her armor was failing piece by piece. She climbed the steps like they were heavier than she remembered. I opened the door before she could knock. For a long second, she didn't say anything, just stared at me like I was some artifact unearthed from a time capsule. You planned this, she said finally. No accusation in her voice, no bite, just quiet realization unraveling in real time. I looked at her. You voted yes. Her breath caught, barely noticeable, but I noticed. She stepped closer. I didn't know Rick told me it was just temporary, a restructure. I thought you'd be brought back after I learned my lesson? I said with sarcasm so sharp it cut the air between us. She winced. For a moment, I saw the cracks. Not guilt, not remorse, confusion. As if she couldn't compute that someone she underestimated could still surprise her. I gave 30 years to that company, I said quietly. Built it with my hands while you all rebranded it into cocktail party talking points. She looked down. I never wanted it to go this far. I leaned against the door frame. You didn't want it to go this far? Or you didn't think I could? That landed. I saw it. She tried to find something in her bag of tricks. Empathy, maybe. Memory. We built a life together. Remember the nights in the first office on that futon when we didn't even have payroll covered? We'd eat tuna from cans and write invoices by hand. Yeah, I remember, I finished. I remember doing that while you were texting your brothers about selling me out to venture capital 2 years later. Now she looked up, eyes wet. It wasn't like that. You were becoming isolated, paranoid. You didn't trust anyone. Because you were giving me reasons not to. She stepped forward. So this is revenge? You torched the family just to prove a point? No, I said. This isn't revenge. This is consequence. And then she broke. Tears came. Real ones. Maybe. Her voice cracked. You think I don't care? This didn't hurt me? I lost everything today. I looked her dead in the eye. You lost something you never earned. That was the moment her face hardened like glass turning to stone. Guilt had failed, so now came the second act. Fury. You always needed to be the hero, she snapped. You couldn't handle not being the center of gravity. That's what this is. But I didn't respond, didn't argue, didn't explain. I just let the silence stretch until it snapped. And then, without another word, I closed the door. She stood there for a few more seconds, maybe waiting for the handle to turn. It didn't. Behind the door, I leaned against the wall, not in relief, not in pain, just stillness. This was never just a business play. This was surgery, and some cuts bleed longer than others. The perfect ending came 6 weeks later at a venture capital party. Ballroom flooded with the usual suspects. Venture capital hangers-on, slick founders, startup mascots in sneakers pretending to be billionaires. A jazz trio noodled in the corner like they were being paid not to be noticed. I stood near the bar, sipping a drink I didn't like but couldn't name, watching the crowd try to remember who they were without their LinkedIn titles. 6 weeks since the transfer, 6 weeks since I set a quiet fire no one could put out. For the first time in years, I didn't need to shake hands, didn't need to pitch, didn't need to matter. I'd already done what I came to do. I was halfway through my drink when I saw him. Michelle's boss, lead counsel for the family board, the same man who drafted the vote that forced me out. Now wearing a tux 2 sizes too tight and panic sweat too thin to hide, his eyes locked on mine like a deer spotting the edge of a cliff mid-sprint. He stumbled over. No intro, no hello. Just the look of a man haunted by math that didn't add up. You sold to Glass. I let the question hang in the air. Then I sipped my drink, one slow, deliberate motion, and said it quiet enough for just him to hear. At 9 a.m., I smiled. His face drained like someone had pulled the plug on his circulatory system. Sheet white, jaw slack. The lights in the ballroom danced behind him while he stood frozen, like the ghost of a man who realized the grave had been dug years before he ever picked up a shovel. I walked away without waiting for response. Some revenge is loud. It bellows. It shouts. It demands attention. But the most effective kind? It's silent, strategic, and absolutely irreversible. What I love about this story isn't the revenge itself. It's how it was done. This was a man who didn't beg, didn't lash out, didn't even yell. He just watched, waited, and pulled a single silent thread that unraveled everyone who underestimated him. There's something deeply satisfying in that kind of restraint. And terrifying, too. They thought they were wolves running the pack. Turns out they were sheep who forgot the shepherd had bigger teeth.